Okay, so as you can probably already tell, I have a bit of a new setup. I am actually recording this on my desktop, or not my desktop, my laptop, and you can even see my desktop right there. That is currently not on. I actually have the computer on right now, but I turn off the display. But yeah, this is just a bit of a new setup that I have. I'm not quite sure you guys like it. If you like it, let me know in the comments below. I'm going to try to see if this gives a little bit better quality in terms of the videos that I do. But either way, let's get into today's video, which is talking about these 11 games on match week number 11. And I am actually going to be going backwards with this match week number 11 preview, because I'm assuming most of you are here to watch these free kind of preview. You want me to talk about these free games because this is truly a Super Sunday weekend with Portland versus Seattle, the Cascadia Derby, Orlando City versus Atlanta, two of the best team going head-to-head, and LAFC against NYCFC, another very juicy matchup there near the top part of each conference. So yeah, that is of course what I'm going to do. I'm going to start with the Sunday game first. And before I start, congratulations to Sporting KC for not only now being the top dog in the supporter shield standing. We'll say supporty for whatever reason, but they are now the top dog of the supporter shield standings, and as a reward of that, they get a bye week, as they will be the only team that gets the bye week sweepstakes. So yep, congratulations Sporting KC, enjoy that bye week. But either way, like I said, we're going to start with the Sunday game. We're going to start with the appetizer, the Cascadia Derby between Portland versus Seattle. Portland currently are 3-2-3 and have won the last 3 games, while Seattle are 2-4. They beat Toronto FC 2-1 away. Certainly a game that I definitely did not expect Seattle to win. I definitely didn't give them a lot of chance coming into that game, consider how bad they were. But they did a pretty typical 2016 MLS Cup final kind of win by just not dominating the game at all. In fact, they were pretty much outplaying every bit of the stats except for the scoreline. And yeah, they're definitely going to have a lot of confidence coming into the Cascadia Derby against Portland, although I will say that Portland does have a bit of an edge in this Cascadia Derby, mainly because, one, they have more rest than Seattle. They don't have a midweek game. 2, they have won 3 in a row, so the confidence level of Portland is just sky high right now. Plus the fact that they finally won their first road game in a couple of months. And 3, it just feels like Portland with this game at home and how Portland is just so good at home in these last couple of years. Yeah, that certainly give them a bit of an edge in this one. Although it is the Cascadia Derby, this is arguably the best derby in MLS, and certainly the atmosphere will be incredible in this game. And anything, of course, can happen in this game. Maybe Seattle can pull off another shocker by somehow go into Providence Park and getting all 3 points. I mean, keep in mind, Seattle does not have any DPs potentially coming into this game. Well, actually, I'm not quite sure if Dempsey is going to be playing in this game, but if he's not, then there is going to be no DP because Ladero, I think, is still out. Roman Torres is also still out. There's a lot of injuries right now for the Sounders to deal with, so yeah, it is going to be interesting. I'll definitely be watching this one, and I won't be surprised if either of these two teams win because it's the Cascadia Derby. But moving on to the next match, Orlando City versus Atlanta United. This is probably the entree of the Super Sunday and probably the match of the week. And unfortunately, Atlanta lost in their midweek games, which means that we are not going to have a head-to-head game between two of the teams that has the longest unbeaten streak. God damn it, Sporting KC. You ruined this kind of build up. And the other thing is, I can't also say that this is a top 2 kind of clash because Orlando City is currently 3rd and Atlanta is currently 1st. But still, it is a very good matchup. And I think in this game, Orlando certainly have more to prove in this game because I really think that despite the fact that Orlando has won 6 in a row, you look at the teams that they have played in those 6 games, and teams like RSL in that last game, which they kind of were, you could say, maybe a little bit lucky that RSL just could not finish because they were pretty much outplaying in that game against RSL, but they still won it. And then they play against the Quakes a couple of weeks ago. They play Philly a couple of weeks ago, and they play, I think, Colorado and also Portland when Portland was still just really bad. So it's not like Orlando City has beat any good team so far. So this is really the first big test for Jason Christ's team, and certainly a big test to see whether or not if this Orlando City team is really the big deal. Is this really a team that is going to be competing in the Eastern Conference? And one other things that I am a little bit worried about Orlando City in this game is that how is this defense gonna try to hold down this just free scoring Atlanta attack? I mean, I know Atlanta so far throughout these first couple of road games, it's pretty clear that their game plan is not really just free score each of their opponent and just kind of like bombard their opponent with multiple goals like they would do at home. They tend to have more of kind of like a grind now, kind of just get enough goals to get the road victory kind of style. Although, they still have a lot of talent on that attack. I just have a feeling that Orlando City is not going to stop that Atlanta deadly attack. I mean, I don't know how in the world are they going to contain Joseph Martinez, Miguel Almiron, Hector Villalba, and Ezequiel Barco in that front 4. And in some way, I could say that this could be a high-scoring game because I remember, I think it was last year, I think this one was at Mercedes-Benz Stadium. This game ended 4-3. And I think Atlanta won that one, or was it Atlanta or Orlando City? I think it was Atlanta that won that game, and that game ended 4-3. And I wouldn't not bet my money that this game could be 4-3 again because both of these teams have just such a good attack. And, Atlanta does have a pretty good defense, but Orlando City, that attack, with Dom Dwyer there and Justin Miram and even Sasha Kleshin in there, that is going to be a team that's going to score goals. So, yeah, I have a feeling this is going to be a really high-scoring game, and really, this is a game that, even for a neutral standpoint, just strap up and watch this one go because there's going to be plenty of fireworks in this one. But yeah, next up, LAFC versus NYCFC. This is pretty much the dessert of this Super Sunday. So, LAFC is now unbeaten in 5 games. And they're kind of quietly going through this 5-game unbeaten run, mainly because they haven't been really playing that well, that is LAFC. I mean, in that last game against Minnesota, yes, they scored 2 goals, but it didn't look like they were just... There was still problems in the midfield for this team, and I think that's been a bit of an issue right now for LAFC in that midfield area. But still, they're still winning games, and I think if you ask LAFC fans, that's all they care. They don't care how the team is not playing as well as it has been the last couple of weeks. It's just that they got the 3 points in the bag, and that's all it matters at the end of the day. Well, NYCFC, on the other hand, they have looked very human in these last couple of games. I mean, they have lost 2 out of 3 games. One of them was against Portland, which they got shut out. And then, in that New York derby, they got completely blown apart. And it was a very similar kind of display of what happened a couple of years ago in that infamous Red Wedding game where the Red Bulls beat NYCFC at Yankee Stadium 7-0. And yeah, NYCFC is going through probably their first tough stretch of this season. And I know that they only have lost 2 out of 3, and this is just kind of like a mini kind of slump that they're in. But it's going to be interesting to see how are they going to play against LAFC. I have a feeling it's going to be a low-scoring game with this, because LAFC in these last couple of games, they have not been shown that they are kind of like a team that just can score a lot of goals like they would have had the first couple of weeks. So yeah, I mean, this is going to be a very interesting game, and I think whoever wins this one certainly will have a big morale boost, but whoever loses this one, I don't think it's should be a time for panic. Certainly for LAFC, if they lose this one, then oh well. I mean, their record is just going to be 6-1-3, and if NYC lose this, they're going to be 6-2-3, and I wouldn't be that worried either way, because it's a road game against a LAFC team that so far this season has been proved that they've been doing very well at home this season. But yeah, so those are the Sunday game, and probably the games that I'm going to be keeping my eyes on and watching, because the rest of these games I am probably not going to be watching. And the reason why is because I'm going to be going to the view party for the Quakes versus Minnesota at Avaya Stadium. And actually, this is actually the first time that I ever have done a match preview where I actually did not do a Quakes preview before. Usually I have done a Quakes preview, and you can just like look in the link in the description below, or you can just check out on my YouTube channel about how, about this game. But I haven't done a preview of that yet, and I'll probably do it tomorrow. But talking about this game between the Quakes and Minnesota United, I mean, the good news for the Quakes is that the last team that they have beat during this long winless streak that they had was against Minnesota opening weekend at Avaya Stadium, which they beat them 3-2. And they have beaten Minnesota before on the road. Well, they actually beat them last year 1-0, and I think the Quakes have never lost to Minnesota. And I know it's only been 3 meetings, but they have never lost to Minnesota. And Minnesota is kind of like going through the same stretch that they had a couple of weeks ago, where they had that 2-game mini winning streak, and then it gives the Loons fan a lot of hope, thinking that they can potentially compete, and then they play against a good team, which this case was LAFC, and they find out that they are actually not very good. And I hope that will be the case once again. I hope the Quakes can finally be more organized in this game. I mean, so far it's been just so dysfunctional with this team. We have players that are certainly not playing for the team and just playing for themselves, and something has to change with this team. That is pretty much the bottom line of this. And as long as if we don't end this winless run, nothing is going to change. So I'm really hoping that this game for the Quakes is the beginning of this recovery after this just ridiculously bad start. But then again, Minnesota has been very good this season at home. They have won 3 of their 4 games at home this season. So it's not going to be easy, okay? Just saying that. But it should be a winnable game. It should be one of the most winnable road game that we have this season. Talking about the team that lost to Minnesota last week, Vancouver, they take on Houston, and this is kind of the mediocre derby, because it seemed like both of these teams are kind of like in that mediocre stage, with Vancouver, a shocking loss against the Whitecaps last week, considering the fact that they were up a man for the majority part of that second half, and they conceded that goal when they were up a man, and the fact that they still could not salvage a draw in that game. And they host the Houston Dynamo that got a pretty big 3-2 win against the Galaxy, although it is the Galaxy, and the Galaxy are not that good right now. So it's very interesting to see who is going to come out of top of this. For Houston, we all know that they are absolutely horrendous on the road. It seemed like Houston just there seems to be this kind of road curse that the Dynamo always go through. No matter which opponent they play, they always tends to not get 3 points on the road. And they're playing against a Vancouver team that is not that good at home either. So yeah, I mean, it's a very strange kind of game. I'm not sure if a win will certainly give some... Well, I think a win will definitely give some confidence to one of these two teams, but it seems like this season we've seen whenever these two teams get a win, the very next game they put out an L or a bad result. So, I don't know. It's a very strange one to call. I don't really know who's going to really win it. My bet is kind of on Vancouver because I just think Houston just cannot win on the road whatsoever. I would say that Vancouver might win this one, but then again, if they look exactly what they were in that last game against Minnesota, I don't think they're going to win. And they'll probably even be lucky to get a draw if they play like they did in that last game against Minnesota. But yeah, next up, Montreal versus Philly. And again, this is another weird game because Montreal, just as you thought that they kind of turned themselves in a corner against New England, they go to Chicago and they lay an egg in that. And Montreal has just been so up and down, and it's mostly down throughout the season. And, in that last game, it was pretty clear that they find out the fact that you cannot just always rely on Piatti. I mean, I even said it in the preview that right now, whenever you play against Montreal, every team is just going to stop Ignacio Piatti because they know that he's the dangerous man. He is literally the only guy in this impact team that can do damage to a team. And once you shut him down, like what the Fire did, Montreal had zero attacking threat whatsoever. Now the good news is they're playing against a Philly team that is just even worse than them. I mean, this Philly team is literally on pace to break the records for the most shutout in an MLS season. I mean, 4 out of the last 5 matches that they have got shut out. And they have scored a total of 6 goals right now. And this is the 10th game of the season. We're like more than a quarter way in the season and they only score 6. I mean, they are on pace to score 20 goals this season. And I think that would be also another record. So Philadelphia right now is they're literally breaking records, which is, you would think that's good, but they're breaking records in the worst possible way. I mean, for Philly, it is just, I've been saying it, and I keep saying it every single week, but it's true. It's been depressing. The team just does not have any threats at all going forward. They can't finish to save their life. The midfield is a shamble. The defense is very kind of inexperienced, and they're heading to Montreal, where Montreal, at least this season, has shown that they've been pretty good at home, and we all know that the Union does not do well on the road. In fact, the Union actually has the longest winless run, or the longest away winless run in the MLS, and I think it's at 17 or something like that. So you would think that Colorado would have like the longest winless run because Colorado had like 1 win out of 27 road games, but it turns out that the Union actually has the worst winless run, and that's nothing to cheer about if you're a Union fan. So for me, I think Montreal potentially is going to win this, but it really doesn't help them because it's Philly. Anybody can beat Philly pretty much, unless you're a bad team. So those are the teams that Philly just somehow able to beat. But yeah, next up, Dallas against the Galaxy. So for the second week in a row, Dallas is playing another LA team. This time they're playing against the Galaxy, and I'll tell you what, FC Dallas has been pretty impressive so far, and I talk about how they had this murderous road that they have to go through where they have to play like two LA teams twice, and they still have to play LA again doing this murderous road, and also LAFC. I think the next LA Galaxy game is going to be away at StubHub Center, but right now Dallas looks pretty decent. I mean, a lot of people haven't really kind of talked about them in a bit ever since their unbeaten run got ended. But they have definitely looked pretty solid so far. They definitely have a very good defense. I think a lot of people are not giving Dallas enough credit, and I even will kind of admit to myself that I'm not giving Dallas enough credit in terms of that defense. I mean, that defense is just absolutely rock solid right now. It's just that Dallas does have problems scoring right now, and it's just that I think all Dallas need to do right now to get themselves back to where they were a couple of years ago is that they just need to get Maxi Urruti and also Mauro Diaz going. And if they can get them going and potentially getting Acosta back in these next couple of... I think he's going to be back very soon. I mean, I know he was out for like the first 8 weeks of the season. We're getting to a point where he should be about to make his recovery back to this Dallas team. So, yeah, there are some good things for Dallas to look forward, even though they are in this really brutal stretch. For the Galaxy, it's the complete opposite. I mean, it is panic button right now for the Galaxy because they have lost 3 in a row now. They have lost 4 of their last 5. That Zlatan hype is just quickly wearing off, and right now it's just looked like a very similar Galaxy team as it was last season, and a lot of Galaxy fans have already started to call out the manager and also call out the front office for doing just such a terrible job, which is kind of maybe a little bit of a salvation and a little bit of kind of just a little bit of a consolation if you're a Quakes fan, knowing that one of your rival is also doing very badly. But yeah, and also your former goalkeeper is also doing very badly with the Galaxy, so that's another consolation. I mean, I'm just trying to stay positive. As a Quakes fan, I'm pretty much going through what Philly fans, DC United fans are going through right now, which is really depressed. But yeah, next up, New England. They take on Toronto. Now, this is a big match for both of these teams for a different reason. For New England, this is a big match for them because if they want to prove themselves that they can actually compete this season, they need to win this one. They seriously need to win this one at home, because in the last couple of games, the Revs have started to kind of go back to where they were in the beginning of the season, which was not good. And for TFC, this is a big game for them too, because yeah, just as we thought that their progress of recovering from this really poor start they had because all these CCL commitments and stuff like that was about to begin, they lose to Seattle at home, nevertheless. And I will say that TFC does probably maybe get an excuse, the fact that they still have so many guys that is out. I know that Victor Vasquez, Altidore, and also Hassler is not going to be playing in that game. And I think Altidore was also not in that game against Seattle. I'm not quite sure if he would have maybe made a difference in that game. Well, actually, probably he would be. But losing Victor Vasquez again and also Hassler is a big loss too. And there's a lot of injury right now for TFC. This TFC team is literally using their depth like crazy right now. They're just been pushing to the limits of basically using their second team and a couple of USL guys and trying to push through. And, it's a very kind of sticky situation with Toronto, because if they keep losing, it's kind of hard to say that, well, they're going to eventually pick it up, but they're going to have to pick it up. Like, we're already into May right now, and if they don't pick it up, they continue this slow start into like June, they will really need a big recovery in July. They would really need like just a TFC team that just were all firing on cylinder like last season to even make it into the playoffs. So yeah, it's a very sticky situation for TFC to be in right now. But for New England, they need to prove to people that they can potentially be competing, because right now the East is really hard to get into the playoff position because there's just so many good Eastern Conference teams, and New England is one of those teams that is not supposed to be here. Like, everybody have written New England off in the beginning of the season, and yet they're kind of like overachieving right now. The only question is, can they continue this? Like, they got to, if they want to make the playoffs, they got to continue this. If they show signs of regressing already and back to what everybody expect New England is, they are not making the playoffs this season. But yeah, next up, Columbus versus Chicago. So both of these teams got 1-0 result in the midweek game. Columbus with a 1-0 victory against Philly. Chicago with a 1-0 victory against Montreal. And, you know, Columbus, like FC Dallas, are kind of quietly going through this little winning streak, or not winning streak, but unbeaten streak that they have right now. I think it's now at 4 games. And it's been a roller coaster ride for Crew fans, although it's been kind of a roller coaster ride in terms of overall their franchise, with the threat of them moving to Austin next year. But this season on the pitch, it's kind of been a roller coaster too, because they got off to a good start and then they just had a really terrible stretch, and now they're back to having a pretty good stretch and look like the team they were in the beginning of the season. So if Columbus can continue to be consistently put up these kind of unbeaten streak and not just fall off the cliff once or twice throughout the next couple of weeks and throughout the season, then I think they're definitely going to be making the playoffs. And, you know, for Chicago, I know that they won 1-0 against Montreal, and that was a big win for them, but I just don't know if this team still have enough. Like, right now, this team just does not look like the same Chicago team from last season. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that they had David Accam that was, you know, performing like crazy, and now we know that David Accam literally cannot perform unless he actually have teammates that are actually good. And for Chicago right now, that one big missing piece with David Accam is the reason why it's been a big regress for them. And, you know, goal scoring right now, they've been heavily relying on Nemanja Nikolic, although recently they have been kind of relying on Kevin Ellis for some reason. And this is a guy that a lot of people wouldn't know a couple of weeks and even maybe last season, but he's been started to be kind of the hero for Chicago these last couple of games. But, you know, Chicago is still just, they're still kind of dysfunctional in the midfield and also in the defensive area, and at times they don't look good on the attack end also. So it's tough right now to say. I think Chicago is probably gonna miss the playoffs either way, because they're just a team that doesn't scream to me that they are going to potentially make the playoffs, especially the fact that they are in the Eastern Conference. Now, if they were in the Western Conference, maybe Chicago can actually get in, because the Western Conference is a train wreck right now. But the Eastern Conference is just, it is so hard to get into the playoffs because you have just so many good teams right now. But, you know, for this game, I kind of expect Columbus to win this one because they've been pretty good at home this season. I think the only loss they had this season at home was against the Whitecaps, but other than that, they've been pretty good at home. And Chicago, besides that one good win against the Redbulls and just a rescue kind of draw against TFC, they have not been good on the road at all. So I'll just leave it at that. But yeah, next up, Colorado take on the Redbulls, and Colorado, Yeah, so remember how they were off to kind of a little bit of a good start? Well, I wouldn't say a good start. It was kind of like a mediocre start, but it was still above standard for Rapids kind of fans kind of hope for, because a lot of people thought that the Rapids are going to be trash again. And in these last couple of games, they have pretty much proven that. The Rapids have just fallen off the cliff after they got off to that mediocre start. They have lost 3 in a row coming into this one. They have absolutely no confidence at all in terms, and even in the goal scoring department too. I mean, they've been missing a couple of really big kind of chances left and right in these last couple of games, and they're playing against the Redbulls team that is full of confidence after they beat NYCFC 4-0, and the Redbulls have started to be a little bit better on the road this season too. They beat the Galaxy in that game, and I forgot what was the other game that they also got a road victory, but they've been definitely been better, and this is a Red Bulls team that is going to be competing in the Eastern Conference. So for me, I think the Red Bulls potentially is going to win this. I don't know how Colorado is going to, like, I know Colorado is at home, but the way that they've been playing right now, it's just going to be tough to see them getting a result in this game. And then finally, RSL taking on DC United. So, I'll tell you what, this week, I talk about how there's all these 3 kind of marquee kind of matchup, but if you look at the rest, I mean, maybe this one also might be kind of the marquee matchup, but the rest of the games are pretty kind of boring. And I kind of chose the right week to not watch any of the Saturday game, because some of these are just pretty mediocre, and this one is the case. It's a kind of a mediocre kind of game. You know, RSL is taking on DC United. You know, RSL this season has been up and down and just very mediocre. And to be fair, they probably should be at 4-1-4 right now, because they should have won that game against Orlando in that last game. They were by far the better team, but they just could not finish. And for DC United, yeah, you already know how they are right now. And one thing that I also want to mention about DC United, and this is something that just came into the news yesterday and also a little bit more now today, is that there is a huge rumor that Wayne Rooney is coming to the MLS. Now, if he does come to the MLS, I will definitely make a video about that, and I'll talk about whether or not if it's a good move or not. But just to kind of give you a little bit information and kind of a little kind of teaser of that video, if it ever will happen. Because if Rooney not coming to DC United, then yeah, I'm not going to make that video. But yeah, I just think that, like, first of all, the transfer fee that they're paying for is like $17 million, which is a lot of money. Like, $17 million, that's right near the record-breaking mark of the most expensive signing in MLS history. And I just feel like this signing is pretty clearly for business only. And this is a signing that is is pretty much the only way that DC United potentially can fill their stadiums throughout their next couple of seasons. Because I know for a fact that, you know, with the opening of Audi Field right around the horizon, and how DC United just look like a train wreck right now, they know that stadium is potentially going to, you know, not gonna sell out, and there's gonna be empty seats. I mean, I know it'll still sell out probably for like the first game or maybe the second game, but that hype is just gonna quickly die out. And if Wayne Rooney does come, you know that the stands are gonna be filled up, because he's a former Manchester United legend, and, you know, there's a lot of Manchester United fans in the States, and if they can see one of their idol playing for their team, they of course will show up in the game. But in terms of, will this be a good signing? Well, that's when I would talk about that when I make that video. If it will actually happen, if Wayne Rooney does come to DC United. But yeah, that is pretty much it for this week. I hope you guys enjoy this edition of the preview. I hope that you guys can watch these kind of games right here, because these are just such a juicy games for this weekend. And also let me know in the comments below in terms of the prediction of these games. Who do you think is gonna win? Who do you think is gonna lose? And yeah, I of course will see you guys next time, and I will see you guys in the review show, which I will do on Sunday.